So, folks, a lot of people seem to not like CEOs, and I just don't get it. What's not to like about them? They're highly incentivized, motivated people who go out there day after day to figure out how to provide you with fewer and fewer goods and services for higher and higher prices. I don't see why do you hate them? I don't get it. They go out there day after day, salt of the earth people in their ivory towers, and they are putting their nose to the grindstone every single day, snorting the lines. And in exchange, all they get is this hatred. I don't understand. Like, they should be respected. They've worked so hard. In fact, millions of times harder than most other people. They're going out there and they're doing the hard work of determining how they can cut all of your wages or fire you for being lazy, and deservedly so. And no CEOs work as hard as insurance CEOs, because you know what? Not only do they have to, do all of that, but then on top of it, they have to figure out how to make sure that they provide as little coverage as possible. And that's a real job, okay? You have to go out there and you have to say, this 59-year-old working mom, well, sure, she has leukemia, but like, does she really deserve healthcare coverage? I mean, it's not exactly conclusive. Maybe she doesn't have leukemia. I think she can pull through. And that is a hard job. Determining who should live and who should die, that is a hard job. Millions of times harder than, working your 9 to 5. Why, they're out there deciding who lives and dies 24/7. And, you might be saying, I mean, how hard could it be, Jack? I mean, after all, they're just, holding lives in the balance. And to you, I say, you're a fool, a buffoon, a true, a true mental maladapt. All right, you fools, because you see, every year insurance CEOs have to decide who lives and who dies, and this directly leads to around 26,000 Americans dying every year because they've been denied insurance. And if you do the math, this study was published in 2008. And I'm just going to pull up a calculator here. Let me just pull this up here. 26,000. All right. Times, let's see here. Well, if you add 10 years onto that, it's 2018, and then you add another 6 years, so 16 years. All right. You get 416,000 people who have died due to being denied healthcare coverage in the United States. And that's a tough job. You're being paid extraordinarily well to 24/7 make sure that almost 500,000 people die over the course of, a decade and a half, give or take. And that's some really hard work, you know? Anyway, United Health CEO got assassinated today at around 6:30 in the morning, on the street. Guy just walked up and shot him several times with a silenced pistol, and then rode away on an electric bicycle, and appears to be still at large. And it's really hard to talk about this topic. People really hate health insurance CEOs. Okay? Because here's the secret. Those 416,000 people who've died over the last 16 years, they had friends, they had family, they had people who cared about them. So when you extrapolate those numbers out, that's a lot of people who, lost someone they loved. And that's not including people who are underinsured, which you might say, I mean, why would sure, you might get partial coverage, but surely that's not like something you might hold a grudge about. And I just want to share an article that was published by the American Society of Anesthesiologists from November 14th of this year. Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield won't pay for complete duration of anesthesia for patients' surgical procedures. Because they want to save money and cover you less. So if you want to be fully under anesthetic for major surgeries, sucks to suck, I guess. It is I'm a bit older than your average bear, okay? I'm a bit older here. I remember when Obama was introducing Obamacare, or what became known as Obamacare. It was originally the Republican plan for a national healthcare service. And people, predominantly Republicans, Tea Partiers, etc., were going nuts about death panels, that the government would have unaccountable panels of people who decide who lives and who dies. And the thing is, we have that. We just have privatized death panels in America, where essentially bureaucrats who are incentivized to let more people die are in charge of whether or not those who pay them for insurance live or die, or are covered at all. And this is really kind of where we're at. And now there have been some questions about this particular assassination because, the CEO in question was, in fact, doing a little bit of seemingly insider trading where he sold his $15 million worth of shares in the company prior to it losing $25 billion in value. And, there was some weirdness about that. He'd been getting death threats pretty consistently. And yeah. And you might be like, well, how do health insurance companies get away with not insuring people? Surely that would be illegal, right? Clearly there are laws against this, right? Well, Ken Klippenstein here has is on the ball. All right. United Health Group contributions since 1990, $34.4 million. Over $100 million spent lobbying since 1998. That's how they get away with this kind of shit. United Health Group denies like a third of all claims they receive. It really is a case of like, this company and this system that we live under in the United States for healthcare is evil. And people know that it's evil. And that cuts across like party lines. Because you know what? You know who's also being denied healthcare coverage? Working class Republicans. they're also being denied coverage. So basically everyone hates these CEOs. So it comes as no surprise to me that in the wake of, there's footage floating around. I'm not going to show it on stream. There's footage of this guy being shot and killed, and like people are celebrating it because frankly, he's a figurehead of a much larger systemic issue. And one of the things I just want to say, I want to take the opportunity to say this. This should be considered a warning to CEOs, the wealthiest members of our society. This should be considered somewhat of a warning because it's very clear that someone knew where this guy was going to be. They knew what time to come at him. They had equipment that is, non-standard. It's harder to get your hands on a silencer in New York City, or in the state of New York. And the issue is not going to be solved by like buying bodyguards or having security details. One of the things that we've been seeing on a systemic level in our society are people bouncing between political parties, which is indicative of the system failing, right? The system failing. And on top of that, not only does the system fail people, but when the system fails, people need to be able to rally behind it in order to buoy it back up, in a sense. I'm really simplifying things here a bit, but there needs to be a belief in that system to hold it up. Currently, there's no belief, right? There's no faith in the current system as it stands. And what happens when, it completely breaks down is you start seeing more stuff like this. And there are really two paths forward. And one is the elites in our country continue to neglect the system, continue to abuse the working class, continue on this path that they have chosen, this neoliberal path of privatization, of keeping wages stagnant, of denying healthcare, of denying housing, etc. Which I'm not going to lie, they're very likely to continue doing that. Or they land a compromise. And a good example of what I'm talking about is the New Deal. And I've talked about this a bit on the stream before, but the New Deal was a compromise. It was essentially a compromise that FDR made with the socialist left that was growing in power at the time. And it was very, very successful. It was basically a New Deal to bring, to put to sleep the working class movement of solidarity, in order to say, see, your worries can be addressed in liberalism. But that compact has been broken by the advent of neoliberalism. And all of the institutions that the New Deal put in place, all of the institutions of that compromise have been under constant assault by the elites of our society for quite some time now. The capital class wants to destroy this compromise because it is what prevents them from essentially becoming robber barons again, becoming monopolists, and if they continue down that road, if they refuse the compromise route, then we're starting to look at a complete and utter breakdown of society. We start looking at increasing discontent, increasing rage, increasing, violence. And that violence isn't going to be, necessarily planned. There's not going to be, necessarily some kind of, military leadership of like, saying attack here, attack there, attack, foment a riot in this district. That's not going to happen, generally speaking. But what's going to happen is just a boiling up of discontent. And again, a good example of this is the French Revolution. The French Revolution was not something that the elites of their society wanted to happen, but it was a direct result of the, ailments of the working class coming to a head and discontent boiling over. And it was to such a degree that the entire social fabric, the relationship between aristocrat and peasant totally broke down in a way that wound up escalating into severe bloodshed. And so I just want to put forward the idea here that I think you cannot look at the assassination of United Health Group's CEO without realizing what exactly is happening on a much larger scale, because that I consider this essentially a bit of a heralding of things to come. Not because like I necessarily want those things to happen, not because I condone those things in happening, but because the mechanisms are in place. The gears are turning. And if you're like, well, but they would just crush us with soldiers. Have you guys ever seen the paycheck of like a enlisted man? Have you ever seen the paycheck of like a soldier? They get paid bullshit. They get paid nothing. And they're essentially given room and board with like a tiny paycheck that does not allow them to buy much at all. And yeah, it is. Let me put it this way. I don't think people are willing to kill. I don't think the people in our military are willing to kill fellow citizens in the name of billionaires for the sake of the poverty wages that they get paid. Okay? Yeah, and they're looking to cut that too. Yeah. So, yeah. Oh man, you pulled up the exact pay scale right off the bat. Is this I'm sorry, am I reading this right? Is this $3,624 per year? Damn. This is per month? Okay, that's a little bit better, but Jesus. Yeah, this is barely making rent money. A month split in half? Damn. Yeah, so all I'm trying to say here is that the outpouring of, frankly, support that the assassination of this CEO has seen indicates to me that effectively the social contract of the New Deal is broken, and we need to reckon with that and understand that there are really only two paths forward from there. And it's either discontent gets bad enough for a new compromise to be struck, or things continue to get worse until something happens. I know that people are like, there are some advocates of nothing ever happens or whatever, but the discontent does come to a boiling point at some point. And if no compromise is reached, then that boiling point is going to occur. And there have been so many off-ramps from this, so many attempts to pass Medicare for all, so many attempts to, strike bargains through the Green New Deal, for example. The Green New Deal would have been another method of instituting societal-wide economic reforms that would have staved off the celebration of, like, rich elites being killed. But none of those off-ramps have been taken. And so here we are. Certain assholes are looking to cut retirement benefits for our armed soldiers. Yeah, I think the oligarchs have gone a bit too far. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The oligarchs have gone so far that they don't realize they need those guys. And it's not going to go well for them. What I want to reckon with is why more people are angry with people reacting to this with certain emotions than they are to the cost of human life that it happened at the direct hand of men like this. Because really it does boil down to something being as simple as, do you want this one apple that I hold in my hand, or do you want the, lifetime supply of apples that I have off screen? Or, week supply of apples that I have off screen. We'll put it that way. A lot of people want to go for the thing that they can see, right? When it's a good thing. And there's a certain group of people who, when tragedy happens, they find it easier to latch on to the tragedy that is visible rather than,
In honor of our deep mourning and sadness at the death of a corrupt fat cat, might I recommend a song? It's not Mariah. BWA.
Paladin Lost, you may recommend a song. What is this? Okay, I will play this after the segment is done, otherwise I'll have to cut around this, but it is, yes. Yes. Also, thank you for the 10 goddamn tier 1 subs. I very, very much appreciate that. Thank you for injecting that BWA spirit. See, you prompted Explosion85 to subscribe over on Twitch. Thank you so much. Is it as catchy as Mariah? I think you guys will like it, yeah. But, yeah. I think that it really boils down to the fact that, like, maybe a good example of this would be Vietnam. Like, you had people who were principally against Vietnam based on, like, written news coverage back in the day, but one of the big sea changes for Vietnam support was when the camera actually started rolling and footage of the war started being broadcast in the United States. That made it more real, in a sense, to folks. And so some people, because there's footage of this assassination happening, some people care more about that and the immediate abstract of, like, that guy's existence than, or not the immediate abstract, but the immediacy of that guy's existence versus, like, the abstract suffering of tens of thousands of people every year, Why am I more of a bad person for laughing about? You're not. The trick is you're not. People are just wrong. Chef Janura? I think I'm going to go with Janura. Thank you very much for subscribing with Prime. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Jowser really kind of hitting the nail on the head with the, a single death is a tragedy, a massacre is a statistic. Yeah. It's unfortunate. It really is. But, like, a lot of people don't understand that tens of thousands of people die every year from lack of healthcare coverage, and, thousands more die every year because they have healthcare coverage, but their healthcare insurer refuses to cover it, A serious question: how do we prevent ourselves from falling into depression about our current situation? Well, one of the things you can do to prevent yourself from falling into depression about our current situation is to act. When we've been talking about over the last several days, touching grass, going out, go to the Democrat meetings, go to your DSA meetings. when we're talking about that, doing something will help you to feel better. It will ground you in reality. It will form social bonds, and it will make you feel the agency that you already have. Our system is designed to make you feel like you do not have agency. You do. You are not a helpless person in all of this. The powers that be simply want you to believe you are helpless and without agency. So if you want to feel a little bit better, go out for a walk, call your senator, call your congress people, let them know what issues you care about and why. Be firm, direct, and succinct. And, if you want to do the extra mile, go and call Republican senators who might be who are going to be voting on confirmations. Focus on those swing senators. Tell them why you think it's important for them to vote against Kash Patel, for example, or Pete Hegseth. That can have an impact. Write your letters, write your form letter, start sending them, start mailing them, start faxing them. Okay? Doing these things, organizing in your leftist groups, showing up to the meetings, that is what will help to dig you out of the depression pit you are in. And the other part of it is, if you're in a particular situation where you feel like you can't do such and such, you can always, broaden your social circle, meet new friends, and in the circumstances and situations that you're, socializing in, stand up for what's right. Stand up for trans people. Stand up for, socialist ideas, Medicare for all. Learn why you believe these things. Learn why they are good ideas. Be grounded in your ideology so you can actually explain how it works to other people, because that's what ultimately convinces folks. Learn how to get people to question their own, their own biases and their own ideological predilections. All right? That's really important, because that's part of the whole social political game. Politics and society are they're practically the same thing. Whew. Anyway, I guess rip to one of the hardest working members of society. If you do happen to be a member of the elite, now would be a time to start rethinking who you're backing with all of that dark donor money. And what policies you're pushing for. Because if you ignore these warning signs, things are going to get really bad for you. And no amount of money is going to be able to buy you the security in order to sleep at night. So, which way? Which way do you go? Compromise or revolution? Those are your options.